It is the 14th day of December. Hello and good evening from Rwanda's capital here in Kigali, and many thanks for joining us on this edition. These are the top stories for our viewers in Rwanda and those watching us from across the world. President Paul Kagame has pointed out that uncertainty that surrounds the Omicron variant of COVID-19 is proof that the pandemic is far from over and the continent should remain vigilant in this continuing fight. The government has set retail prices for cooking gas at 1,260 Rwandan francs per kilogram, down from over 1,500 effective Wednesday, December 15, 2021. Transparency International Rwanda has expressed concerns that corruption has more than doubled in Rwanda's private sector over the last 3 years. I trust you're doing well. I'm Ethan Tashobia. You're watching RwandaTV News live from Kigali. This Tuesday at Village Urugwiro, President Paul Kagame is chairing a cabinet meeting during which measures to contain the spread of COVID-19 will be discussed, among other topics. On November 28th, President Kagame also chaired an extraordinary cabinet meeting to discuss Rwanda's response to COVID-19 Omicron variant, which was designated a variant of concern by the World Health Organization. The meeting took some precautionary measures to control the spread of the new variant in Rwanda, whose effects are potentially dangerous, and Rwandans and residents of Rwanda have since been required to exercise extra vigilance in practice and enforcement of the preventive measures. Now, that specific extraordinary cabinet meeting resolved to temporarily suspend direct flights between Rwanda and Southern Africa, and a 7-day quarantine at own cost in a designated hotel was imposed for passengers traveling from and those with a recent history of travel in particularly counties affected by Omicron variant, among other measures. We'll be updating you about the latest measures taken by the government as soon as we get them. In more stories, President Paul Kagame has pointed out that the uncertainty that surrounds Omicron variant of COVID-19 is proof that COVID-19 pandemic is far from over and that the continent should remain vigilant in this continuing fight. While speaking at the inaugural conference on public health in Africa, the head of state also noted that even though some progress is being made when it comes to Africa's health sector, much more is needed to be done and at a faster pace.
The inaugural conference on public health in Africa is an expression of our continent's commitment to forging a new public health order for Africa. I commend the African Union Commission, led by Chairperson Musa Faki, as well as African CDC under the leadership of John Nkenga Song, for not allowing this moment to pass us by without clearly articulating Africa's needs and ambitions. The new public health order has 4 components where we have already made good progress, but need to do much more and do so faster. First, we must continue to build the capabilities and professionalism of our continental health bodies. Africa CDC has provided clear leadership throughout the pandemic and helped many of our countries access tests, protective equipment, and vaccines. We cannot continue to rely on external funding for something so important to our future. Third, and closely linked to this, is the need to invest much more in national health systems. The ability to implement critical health programs, including regular mass vaccination campaigns, depends on the quality of national health services and the trust that the public has in them. And finally, let's continue to work together to implement the Partnership for African Vaccine Manufacturing. This historic initiative, launched in April this year by our chairperson, President Tshisekedi, has already catalyzed new vaccine manufacturing initiatives in various African countries. Building manufacturing capacity is the only way to ensure that Africa does not remain at the back of the queue for life-saving medicines. The uncertainty around the new Omicron variant proves that the pandemic is far from over. We must remain vigilant and act with a sense of urgency and purpose, both as a continent and together with our partners around the world.
Now, the government has set retail prices for cooking gas at Rwandan francs 1,260 per kilogram, effective Wednesday, December 15, 2021. The new LPG prices come 10 days after Prime Minister Dr. Edouard Ngirente told Parliament that the problem of price hikes would be resolved. Sergeant Ore reports.
For months, gas prices had kept creeping up and had caused many to complain, prompting parliamentarians to ask the Prime Minister about them. So we are working on it such that all the figures in the resolution will have been found in no more than 10 days. 10 days is a deadline starting today. The new gas price is now at 1,260 Rwandan francs per kilo. So starting on Wednesday, 3 kilograms will cost 3,780 Rwandan francs, 6 will cost 7,560 Rwandan francs, 12 kilograms will cost 15,120, 15 kilograms will be at 18,900 Rwandan francs, and 20 kilograms will be at 25,200 Rwandan francs. The analysis included accounting for where that cooking gas is imported from, its journey from overseas, and its transportation from East Africa's port cities to our country. All that was considered, and it was decided that adjustments should be made on the price. The new price has been welcomed. It's good news because prices had climbed too high in some parts of Kigali. So much so, some of us had gone back to using charcoal. People had stopped using gas because of how expensive it had become, using charcoal and firewood for cooking again. People are happy that it has now changed for the better. The government is pushing for more people to use gas for cooking because of the environmental benefits of doing so. If all schools were to use gas, all homes and other urban areas too, not just Kigali, it would be very beneficial. We therefore want to reduce the amount of charcoal and firewood we use so that we can not only improve our own health but the environment as well. The government has given traders assurances that they will not fall into losses because of the new prices, and stressed that the interests of all parties involved, including consumers, were considered when the new price was decided on after consultations with importers. In 2016, only 2.4% of the country's households used gas for cooking, and as of last year, the figure had been more than doubled to 5.6%. The goal of the government is to reduce the figure of people who use things like charcoal and firewood from 79 to 42% by 2024.
Thank you, Serge, for that report. Transparency International Rwanda has expressed concerns that corruption has more than doubled in Rwanda's private sector over the last 3 years. In general, however, corruption in Rwanda has reduced by 1% in the last 4 years, according to the just released bribery index. Serge Nore continues.
The 12th edition of the Rwanda Bribery Index that was published by Transparency International Rwanda confirmed the worrying trend of corruption rising steadily in the private sector, with figures having more than doubled in just 3 years, after climbing from 4.2% in 2019, then 7% last year and 9.8% this year. 90% of Rwanda's jobs are found in the private sector, and the vast majority of corruption cases, 70% to be exact, involve job seekers. As pointed out by the chairperson of Transparency International Rwanda, despite giving bribes to get jobs, those in the private sector usually find themselves overworked and underpaid, something she says employers should be legally held account for. Surprisingly, the index also found a lot of corruption in the education sector, with bribes given to transfer kids from rural to urban high schools, resulting in overcrowding in some schools while others stand virtually empty. In local government, most corruption seems to surround the procedure of issuing building permits, accounting for 61% of cases. Officials in the Ministry of Local Government note, however, that the recent election of new local leaders gives hope that the issue will be dealt with. We believe the new leadership in local government, especially at the district level, the advisory and executive councils, will put a lot of effort on this matter so that the existing gaps can be closed and corruption can be eliminated. And mind you, that can be done because the political will exists in our country and the drive for capacity building is also in high gear, with the law being respected and technology being used as a long-term solution, because when used properly, it closes those gaps and anyone who tries to engage in corruption is exposed. Following the private sector when it comes to corruption with its 9.8% is the traffic department at the National Police with 7.6%, and then the Rwanda Standards Board in third place with 4.4%. Among institutions being commended for significantly reducing corruption is the Rwanda Investigation Bureau that managed to pull it down from 7.1 to just 1.2% between 2019 and 2021.
Now, Zigama CSS General Assembly members convened today at RDF headquarters in Kimihurura to discuss and approve the 2022 business plan of the financial cooperative. Zigama CSS is a financial cooperative with membership drawn mainly from security organs, namely Rwanda Defense Force, Rwanda National Police, Rwanda Correctional Services, National Intelligence and Security Services, and Rwanda Investigation Bureau. The 35th General Assembly was chaired by the Minister of Defense, Major General Albert Murasira, and attended by members of the Minister of Justice, Dr. Emmanuel Ugirashebuja, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Jean Bosco Kazura, as well as service chiefs and heads of security organs and other selected members. According to the approved business plan for the year 2022, Zigama CSS targets to increase its gross income to 69.9 billion Rwandan francs from 54.2 billion Rwandan francs, and its net profit to 20.1 billion Rwandan francs from 15.2 billion Rwandan francs. During the General Assembly, key decisions aimed at improving members' welfare were taken to include proposals to increase Solidarity Fund loans to its members, among others. According to Zigama CSS Chairman of the Board of Directors, Dr. James Ndahiro, all members are aimed at improving members' welfare as core mission for the cooperative. He also emphasized that for members who apply for house loans for the first time, Zigama CSS maintains a reduced interest rate of 10% for the members. Now, the management of Ejo Heza, a long-term savings scheme set up by the government of Rwanda, says the number of members has almost tripled compared to its 7-year fund goal. Those who have already served in the fund, including informal workers, are happy to have a plan for their future. Ejo Heza was set up 3 years ago, aiming at promoting the culture of saving among citizens and residents of Rwanda, ensure universal access to pension and social security inclusion, and for Rwandans to attain higher standards of living through financial inclusion, economic growth, and poverty alleviation. Gatela Auguste, the head of Ejo Heza scheme at the Rwanda Social Security Board, explains that Rwandans at all levels have a higher level of understanding of the culture of saving.
When you do the analysis, people in the first and second stages of the social category are the ones who opened up accounts with Ejo Heza because they form 67% of the total number of people registered, while those in the third category are 31% and those in the fourth category are 7%, in addition to salaried employed persons who formed 11% of total subscription, while the youth savings in this fund are 17%.
The management of Ejoheza is confident that in the coming years, the figures will continue to rise and the fund will play a significant role in the national economy. In other stories, research conducted by the National Council for Science and Technology on the assessment of IT innovations in Rwanda reveals that importation of IT solutions is at 65%, while local software exports are 25%. Local software engineers have also expressed the need to protect and promote made in Rwanda solutions. Betty Mutoni reports.
The report by the National Institute of Statistics Rwanda on Public Health and Welfare, which is to be implemented over the next 5 years, includes statistics that show the various levels of the population health status as well as reproductive health. The steps taken include an average of 6 children and more per woman in 1992 to 4 children per woman in 2020. In terms of family planning, it has risen to 58% in 2020 from 6% in 2000. In 2019-2020, 98% of women gave birth at the hospital as opposed to 26% of women who gave birth at the hospital in 1992. The deaths of children under the age of 5 came from 151 per 1,000 newborns to about 45 children. The Minister of Health, Dr. Daniel Ngamije, says as the citizens continue to inform themselves, the quality of life will also improve.
I think this demographic health survey is an important report because it gives to the Ministry of Health and all partners and all sectors in the country where we stand in terms of achieving some key indicators regarding maternal and child health, but also some key other health programs like HIV, malaria, and nutrition. So we came to realize that we do still have a lot to do to improve the health status of our population. When it comes to talk about maternal and child mortality, we do still have a lot to do. When we need to reduce stunting, we have also a lot to do so that we combine our efforts to make sure that first, with this report, we know root causes of poor performance that we have seen in some indicators, and we act accordingly. I think this is an important tool for planners, for decision makers, and for partners, because these data are credible, so they can give us opportunity for us to make sure that we mobilize all resources that are needed to go forward.
Minister of Local Government Gatabazi Jean-Marie Vianney says that the problem of malnutrition and stunted growth is on 33% from 38% in 2015, and that they are going to carry out in-depth campaigns.
Once we have these statistics, what is remaining for us is dissemination to the local leaders and those who are going to implement, but also to find solutions for those issues that have been highlighted. We are going to call upon all mayors and district leaders at the level of district and sectors. We are going also to call upon all partners at the level of district, the church religious leaders, media practitioners who are on ground, the schools, the NGOs, the civil society organizations who are working at the level of district, so that we disseminate this information and set together the message, clear message to be given to the population and go to the right person who is now suffering from stunting and malnutrition.
The Northern Province has 41% of children who have stunted growth. The Western Province has 40% of children who have stunted growth that are under the age of 5. The South has 33% and the city of Kigali has 21%. At the forefront is Ngororero district with 50% and Kicukiro district with 10% of children with malnutrition and stunted growth. Martina Ebera, RTV News.
I beg your pardon, that report is actually about demographic house survey that was released earlier today. Now the report by Martina Ebera there. Now, in more details of the reports we have today, research conducted by the National Council of Science and Technology on the assessment of the IT innovation in Rwanda reveals that the importation of IT solutions is at 65%, while local software exports are 25%. Local software engineers have expressed the need to protect and promote made in Rwanda IT solutions. Beto Mutoni has this report.
Rwandan software developers are impressed by the way the government has invested a lot in the ICT sector, and they urge it to seriously consider using their products instead of importing others. Algorithm Corporate is a company that exports software. The chief executive officer of Algorithm Corporate, Chimenye Mabre, says that they need to be protected so that international software firms should not slow down the making progress software in Rwanda.
If Rwanda wants to be an African giant in technology, it's the time we make sure only local software can be used. But I think it's a serious time where, as Rwandan, we need to choose what to let in, to make sure the local content, this small software can gain market. We should start trying to put regulations or to give more to these young people, to local software, to local content.
Research conducted by National Council for Science and Technology on the assessment of IT innovation in Rwanda reveals that the importation of ICT solution is at 65%, while the local software developers export 25%. Dr. Louis Sibomana, the head of Department Science Technology Development, explains.
We still need skills, additional skills to develop our own solution, our own softwares, and not only solution, but also additional investment required in technology and innovation. So in particular, we call also private sector to just invest in science, technology, innovation. The government has invested a lot, and in order to close this gap, I think we need also the involvement of private sector.
Director General of PSF ICT Chamber, Alex Ntare, says that this chamber, together with the Ministry of ICT and the National Public Procurement Authority, have agreed on easing made in Rwanda software to get.
1 or 2 months ago, the ministry was inspecting some of the work that was given or procured using this methodology. So we hope that this is going to continue. But it's not just in government. It's not just about government. It's also in the private sector. And in the private sector, there's always tended to be the expectation that things that are made here are not good enough. But that perception is beginning to change, especially during COVID, where we saw service delivery or customer service becoming very crucial, and people were looking for providers that can actually support them locally. So that is beginning to change, and we've seen quite an increase in consumption of local solutions.
The study conducted by National Council for Science and Technology included the government institutions, private companies, and high institutions of learning totaling 1,308 made a commitment of their total capital for investment in technologies of 84.8%. However, this report shows that the level of using technology like robots and advanced medical services is at only 11%. Beto Mutoni reporting for RwandaTV News.
That's it, folks. From me and the entire news production team, many thanks for your company tonight. Stay well and safe. I'm Ethan Tashabia. Bye for now.